Hello, everybody, and welcome to the recording studio of the Golden Silent Films podcast, where we are about to bring the worlds of German silent cinema and New Jersey rock and roll together. Like peanut butter and jelly, these two diverse worlds go together like Bruce Springsteen and rock and roll. Don't believe us? Stay tuned while we rock out with our silent film knowledge out. If you are unaware, for any and all show updates and other newsworthy reports and adventure updates, follow us on Instagram, Bluesky, or Twitter/X. As usual, head on over to Golden Silence Cast on Instagram and Bluesky for up-to-date info on this little show. And for all of you folks on X or Twitter, just follow at Golden Silence 1, or just search for Golden Silence Cast and we should pop up. All of these screen names and sites are going to be in the episode description in case you are interested in checking us out. We would love to have you on board rocking with all of us. At these social spaces, you'll get behind-the-scenes pics and info, upcoming episode reveals, and other fun film-related materials. So, remember to join up. And, lest I forget, you're going to get fun photos of our, I presume, musical podcasts, Gizmo and Soda. Also, if you're listening to this program on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or Amazon Music, please leave comments, reviews, ratings, or all of the above. Our show has been around for over 6 years, and we're only at 24 reviews on iTunes. Now, this is not just a vanity thing. We want to know how we can improve. What parts of the show do you like? What parts of the show do you not like? We want to see those numbers of reviews keep growing, and you hard-rocking silent film fans out there can definitely make it happen. All of those ratings and reviews help so much. So, if you could, live your best review-leaving life and help our show grow a little and reach fellow silent film fans out there. Dropping those reviews gives us more exposure in the world of podcasts and lets us know, more importantly, how we can improve the show for you. As always, we are always grateful for the feedback and always want to bring you the best show humanly possible. And please subscribe to the Golden Silent Films podcast. While our output can admittedly be a little sketchy and irregular, if you're subscribed, you're never going to miss an episode. And the moment new content drops, it's going to go straight to your listening device of choice. Now, we are well into our 6th season and never want you to miss a second. Oh, and if you are listening on YouTube, like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. It means a lot to our growing little channel. Now, one of the joys of making this show is falling down some pretty obscure and wild rabbit holes. Between Wikipedia and the hordes of posts on Bluesky, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and posts on archive.org, I am constantly being introduced to new and wild stories, silent films, and everything silent film adjacent. This one, though, when I came across it, was especially weird, which, if you know my method of operations, makes it a prime candidate for episodehood. Now, this one is so obscure, its main component doesn't even exist in an official capacity. So, let's rewind our story a bit. This particular digression came into our lives on or around September 26, 2025. We were super hyped to catch a performance of the band Silent Light, which was providing the music for a screening of the classic 1926 film Faust. Needless to say, this was a fantastic performance put on at the University of Pittsburgh. The movie was killer, obviously, and the tunes were top-notch. Silent Light rocked the stage and provided an exciting new perspective on the classic Murnau film. It was crazy good, and the music made Marguerite and company way more metal, I guess you could say. This was such a cool performance, and the guys behind Silent Light were great to talk to after the show. I hope to chat more about them in depth in a future episode. Now, this whole spiel is a setup to the genesis of this episode. With Faust fresh in my mind and still vibing to the tunes of Silent Light, I dug a little more into the people behind the making of the film. Obviously, we know Murnau here at the home office, and Emil Jannings is an interesting fellow. I messed around jumping from actor to crew, just exploring the lore and backstory of the film. It was that digging and clicking that brought me to Camilla Horn. The article was perfectly good and filled with traditional biographical information. Where things started to change, though, was when I read Bruce Springsteen wrote a song about her. How insanely bizarre and fascinating was it to see that the boss themed a whole song after a German silent actress. Now, spoiler alert, the answer to that question is very. Now, this occurrence really ticked all the boxes on what I find infinitely fascinating and worthy of a spot on the Golden Silent Films podcast schedule. Music brought us together today, so let's waste no time and go to an early stage of Bruce Springsteen's career and see his musical take on German actress Camilla Horn. Now, Before I get into it, imagine the following to some acoustic guitar with the boss's gravelly gravitas voice. Camilla Horn, she was born a long, long time ago. She came from Germany to the USA and was acclaimed as the next Garbeau. They came to her on their knees to bless them, caress them, and tell them what they need. But oh, she did not know, and she took her place at the bar, just another fallen star. It is so wild and rock and roll that Bruce Springsteen, of all people, has delivered us here to talk about the life and times of Camilla Horn. That's why we love silent films so much. You legitimately never know where a silent or silent adjacent story is going to pop up and capture your imagination. I mean, this 90-second song by the boss has birthed an entire podcast episode. Now, before we get into the musical side of the story, let's leave Asbury Park, New Jersey, and head over to Frankfurt, Germany, where we can talk about the life of Camilla Horn, the great movie she was in, and why she would end up the subject of a Bruce Springsteen song. Now, Camilla Martha Horn was born in Frankfurt on April 25, 1903. Horn was the daughter of a railway worker. The early years of her life and education were split between Germany and Switzerland. As a young adult, she labored in the seamstress industry. The March 4, 1928 edition of the New York Times explains how the garment world led Horn to the entertainment industry. The article reads, 12 other sewing machine girls were under the supervision of the youthful Miss Horn. When this business was ruined by deflation of the mark and inflation of the price of materials, Camilla Horn studied dancing, hired a piano and an instructor, and got a job in a music hall. That write-up continues, one night an executive from the UFA studio strolled into the music hall. He was struck by Camilla Horn's appearance. The film mogul offered her a screen test the next morning. The successful test was followed by 3 days of extra work. Amongst this work as background talent, she would cross paths with Marlene Dietrich, also an extra, in the 1925 German picture Madame Wants No Children. In that film, or Madame Wünscht kein Kinder as it was known in Germany, Camilla Horn's role as an extra was, appropriately enough, that of a dancer. While she did book extra gigs, it wouldn't be until her first starring role that she considered her career as an actress official. In fact, she often downplayed or flat out ignored her time as an extra. It's easy to see why the actress wanted to make her first role that starting point of her career. It was a doozy of a part to be sure. This auspicious quasi-debut came in the now legendary 1926 F.W. Murnau film Faust, where she portrayed Marguerite. Even though she considered this her first film, it wasn't even her first picture with Murnau. In 1925, while earning a living as an extra, she worked on the Murnau film Tartuffe. It truly was a career-making role for Camilla Horn. Movie magazine Photoplay would write, "For once a picture is stolen from the redoubtable Jannings. This Berlin newcomer is a remarkable actress. She gives what is, in our opinion, a better performance than Miss Gish could have offered. It is superbly tender and unaffected bit of work." The accolades for Camilla Horn and her work on Faust scarcely stopped even for a moment. The New York Times on December 7, 1926 wrote, "From the time Faust appears as a gray-bearded man to the cleverly pictured episodes of his return to youth and his love for Marguerite, there is always something vastly appealing, something over which to rhapsodize. Camilla Horn officiates as Marguerite. Her work is remarkable and her personality most charming. In joy and sadness, she is sincerity itself and never extravagant. At the time, Faust was considered to be a bit of a dud and a bit of a commercial failure. Obviously, in the years since its release, audiences have come around to this classic of silent cinema. As you heard for yourself in those reviews, the film did a great job in winning over critics. On top of all that, Faust really bolstered the reputations of everyone involved. In the aftermath of Faust's release, Murnau took his considerable talents to the mecca of movie-making Hollywood. Initially, Camilla Horn intended to follow the director to California, but a recently signed contract with UFA put those plans on hold. While she waited, though, she appeared in 3 films across 1927 before eventually being free to act wherever she wanted. By 1928, all contractual roadblocks were cleared, and the actress was free and clear to ply her cinematic trade elsewhere. For Camilla Horn, as you may have guessed, that would be the United States. On the personal side of things, Horn would become romantically linked with producer Joseph Schenck. Horn wasted no time setting up shop in the States and getting her acting career up and running. One of the first, if not the first, picture she starred in here was 1928 John Barrymore film Tempest. If we were able to look up the definition of a troubled production, the poster for Tempest would be there front and center. It was the behind-the-scenes tumult that allowed Camilla Horn to step in and make a name for herself. So, the basic setup for this picture sees Ivan Markov, played by John Barrymore, rising to the rank of officer despite his peasant upbringing in Russia. So he gets into the military ranks of the Russian army during the waning years of the Tsarist era. Because of his upbringing, he is resented by his fellow officers. Despite this, he falls for the beautiful Princess Tamara, played by Camilla Horn. The love goggles lead to his downfall when she rebuffs his affection and has him imprisoned out of spite. The tide turns, however, when the Bolshevik Revolution begins, and Markov's common origins work to his advantage and allow him to even the score. With the plot summary out of the way, let's look at the wild behind-the-scenes shenanigans and how Camilla Horn became involved. On the surface, nothing seems especially out of the ordinary, but the always awesome website, Movies Silently, takes us into that chaotic lore behind Tempest. The article reads, "It was originally meant to be written and directed by Erich von Stroheim. The martial setting and decadent aristocracy were right up his alley. He was then replaced by two citizens of the Russian Empire, Viktor Torzansky, Boris Defast's brother-in-law, and who took a crack at it but was then replaced by Louis Milestone, who also tinkered with the script, and he was subsequently replaced by an American, Sam Taylor, who has sole directing credit. The script is credited to C. Gardner Sullivan, with von Stroheim and Milestone receiving no mention." Since this is a Camilla Horn-centric adventure, let's look at the series of events that led to Horn assuming the starring role of Princess Tamara. Much like the long line of attached directors and writers, Camilla Horn came to the Russian set picture awfully late in the game. According to Movie Silently again, Greta Nissen had the part before being replaced by Russian actress Vera Veronina. Dorothy Sebastian replaced Veronina and worked on the film for 4 weeks, but she was removed and replaced by producer Joseph Schenk's girlfriend, Camilla Horn, who was fresh off the boat from her native Germany. Tempest turned out to be an especially apt title, but as I mentioned before, this movie was generally well received. It's been a long run, though, here on the podcast without any input from Golden Silent Films podcast favorite reviewer Mordant Hall, so with that in mind, let's turn to the journalistic juggernaut for some insight into this film, and in particular, Camilla Horn's performance. Now, Hall, in the May 27th, 1928 edition of the paper, writes, "Not only is this picture a thing of rare artistry from a photographic viewpoint, but the settings, the costumes, and the uniforms impress one with infinitely more realism than some of the incidents of the tale." Hall continues, "Camilla Horn, a young actress who was seen in Murnau's conception of Faust, alighted one day at Hollywood, and it was not long afterward that she was selected to play opposite Mr. Barrymore in Tempest. She is capable and charming, quite refreshing in a number of scenes, but she does not always seem to have been flattered by the photography. Her role of Tamara is a queer one, for Tamara permits the man she loves to suffer when she might have interceded for him. One is asked to believe that she has for some time been eating her heart out for Markov while he was lingering in prison." Now, the pairing of Horn and Barrymore was so nice they did it twice, following up Tempest with Eternal Love 1 year later in 1929. This film has the distinction of being Ernst Lubitsch's final silent picture. The subject matter, while not the most uplifting, did make for a fascinating film. Horn and Barrymore starred as mountain villagers in Switzerland, forced into a bit of a dramatic love triangle or square. Regardless of the shape, the drama is all there. The two are forced to flee the wrath of the village that wrongly suspects Barrymore's character of killing Horn's character's husband. There's no happy ending here, as both lovers meet their deaths in an avalanche. Needless to say, Eternal Love ended up a bit of a critical and commercial failure. When you can have Mordant Hall on an episode twice, you do it every single time. Although it is capably acted and intelligently directed with excellent scenic effects and setting, the story is not especially moving, which appears to be partly due to the sketchiness of the script. This offering, known as Eternal Love, is based on a novel by Jacob Christopher Heer, Hall wrote on May 13, 1929. When it comes to Camilla Horn, though, Hall, in selling her performance a little short, writes, "Miss Horn is charmingly sympathetic despite a touch too much of the mascaro in her eyes." An article on silentera.com echoes those mordant thoughts, writing, Camilla Horn is beautiful and sympathetic in the film, with a number of well-shot close-ups that will please her fans. Now, Camilla's time on American screens would not last long, however. By 1930, she was wrapping up her final picture in the States, and it wasn't just any random film. It was a talkie, and it wasn't just any random English talkie. It was a joint English-German picture chock full of talking. Horn's final American film was called The Royal Box, and it was a talkie filmed in both English and German made in 1930. This picture was based on Alexander Dumas' biographical play Kean. The film starred Alexander Moussoy and as the renowned English actor Edmund Kean, and Horn as Alice Doran. It was made by Warner Brothers as a German-language film using the Vitaphone process. In Germany, the film was released by the studio's local subsidiary, National Film. The film was also released as a silent film in the United States. This dual citizenship film was released in the United States on November 21st, 1929. Back in the heart of Deutschland, Horn kept up the cinematic momentum, starring in Leo Mittler's Sonntag des Lebens, the German version of Edmund Goulding's The Devil's Holiday in 1930, playing Nancy Carroll's role of a mercenary manicurist converted by true love. Her latter career wasn't strictly confined to Germany, however. In an article for The Independent, writer Tom Valance takes us through the actress's career in the 30s. He writes, her subsequent German films included the big hit Die große Sehnsucht, The Big Yearning. Then in 1932 she came to England to make 3 films in which she displayed good command of the language. The films, The Return of Raffles in 1931, Matinee Idol 1932, and Love Nest in 1932 also, were minor items, however, and when she returned in 1934 to make The Even Poorer Luck of a Sailor, she was 4th billed. Also in that 1996 article, Valance continues, she was now playing more worldly roles than in her earlier films, and her career continued to flourish in Germany, where George Jacobi's Der letzte Walzer, The Last Waltz in 1934, and Jacques Feder's Ferendes Volk in 1938 were notable successes until her trouble with the Nazis, which led to her semi-retirement in 1939. So, how about we focus on that trouble with the Nazi Party and how it impacted her career? The actress, known for her intelligence, outspoken nature, and international and Hollywood stardom, did not align with Nazi ideologies. Consequently, she fell out of favor with the party. Her continued criticism of the Nazi Party resulted in her blacklisting, receiving only minor parts or being forced to work outside the country. Lack of acting work would be the least of her problems, though. In the 1930s, she was prosecuted by the Gestapo for alleged financial offenses, which was a common tactic the regime used to target and discredit public figures who refused to toe the political line. She was imprisoned for 3 months at the women's prison in Vechta. Due to this change in fortune, she stopped working in Germany in the late 1930s. She eventually moved to Italy to continue her career in the early 40s after her villa in Berlin was ransacked by the Gestapo. During the war, she attempted to flee to Switzerland, but was unsuccessful. Now let's return back to Tom Valance for a look at that failed escape and how her career fared after the war. Valance writes, an attempt to cross the border into Switzerland having been unsuccessful, she took up farming and at one point went into hiding. At the war's end, she became an interpreter for the occupying Americans before resuming an acting career with a triumphant stage appearance in Cocteau's La Aigle du Tétis in 1948. Later, Valance continues, she carved a new career as forceful matriarchs on television and film when in the 1988 Bavarian Film Prize for her role as a royal grandmother in Peter Schimoni's Schloss Königswald. In 1974, she received a Lifetime Achievement Award from the German film industry, and in 1985 wrote an autobiography, Verliebt in die Leben, which translates to In Love with Life, in which she candidly discussed her marriages and affairs, including a long-standing one with her co-star Louis Graver. Several years prior to her death, she had moved to a rest home in Bavaria. So with that song having been sung, it is time to find out where your favorite silent stars are laid to rest. This is the segment where we join musically inspirational silent stars on the other side. The cemetery gates, the history, the art, and the celebrity spectacle converge in Where Are They Now?, your guide to paying your respects to the actresses that have entertained us so very much. First, before we fully commit to the Camilla Horn end-of-life info, I wanted to take a quick detour into her autobiography, Verliebt in die Leben, which I briefly mentioned in the biography section. It was published in 1985 and offered a candid first-hand account of her life as one of the most prominent international film stars of the silent and early sound era. Now, I need to mention that this book doesn't exist in an English language version, which is a total bummer. From everything I've read about it, the book seems to have been an amazing read for the German cinephiles out there. The book, from what I read, is well known for its openness regarding Horn's personal relationships. She recounted her multiple marriages and high-profile liaisons, which would be a pretty wild run of stories to read first-hand accounts of. On top of all that cool stuff, it also documents her rapid rise from a dressmaker to cabaret dancer to a global icon after being handpicked by director F.W. Murnau for the 1926 film Faust. If you are more into her cinematic exploits than romantic liaisons, Horn reflects on her time at Universal Pictures in Hollywood, where she starred with legends like John Barrymore, and her subsequent return to the European film industries in Germany, Britain, and Italy. If political intrigue is more your speed, the actress's accounts cover the more trying chapters of her life, including her opposition to the Nazi regime, her unsuccessful attempt to flee to Switzerland, and her time spent farming and working as an interpreter for the U.S. forces after World War II. All of that to say is this autobiography is 328 pages of, I assume, amazing stories. Now, the life liver of those amazing stories, Camilla Horn, passed away on August 14th, 1996, at the ripe old age of 93. She died in Gilching, Landkreis Starnberg, Bavaria, Germany. She passed away at a rest home in Gilching near Starnberg in Bavaria, Germany, where she had spent the final year of her life. In all of my searching, I couldn't nail down a cause of death, so if any of you fine listeners out there know how she died, do let us know on our social media hotspots. She was buried in the Friedhof Hersching Cemetery in Hersching in the previously mentioned Landkreis Sternberg, Bavaria, Germany. If you are also a world traveler or German citizen, you can find her in Thiel 4, Feld 4, whatever that may mean in German. If you are a German listener out there, tell us what that means and lament our many probable, more than likely mispronunciations in this episode. And if you're feeling especially froggy, feel free to interpret her book. Please, that sounds like such a great read. Now that, my friends, is a great legacy on the screen. But the Camilla Horn story transcended the silver screen, and a quick musical jaunt to Asbury Park, New Jersey, will bear that out. Well, not so much New Jersey as much as a series of recording studios across New York City. It was difficult to really dig up much on this song, and there is a really good reason. You see, this is not technically an official Bruce Springsteen song. It appears on bootleg recordings of studio sessions of the time. From what I could find, this song was written sometime roughly between April and June of 1972. This was an incredibly important period for the boss. His debut album, Greetings from Asbury Park, was in its earliest incarnations. The song inspired by Camilla Horn would be recorded during these sessions, though ultimately never released. This period was incredibly prolific from a songwriting standpoint for Bruce. He wrote dozens of songs during the 1972 build-up to his debut in January of 1973. From what I read, the majority of known recordings were made during a 4-month period ending in August of 1972. From this large pool of recordings, some songs were selected and distributed during 1973-74, most notably to the UK, European-based publisher Intersong Music Limited. Some recordings were distributed on tape, others on acetates. Most of these acetates were manufactured at Media Sound in New York City and Angel Sound in Bedford, Massachusetts. Intersong also pressed its own acetates for distribution within the industry. This audio gradually filtered into collector circles in the late 1970s, often under the misnomer the London Publishing Demos. As I mentioned, not all of the songs written during that period were released. Camilla Horn was one of those songs that didn't make the final cut and lived a life of relative obscurity, confined to the realm of bootlegs and various unofficial avenues, only coming to light in the 1990s. The particular bootleg collection was entitled The Early Years. Now, in the technological age we live in, you can find it and listen to it on YouTube, seemingly home of all info these days. When you listen to the song, you'll hear the boss describing Horn's journey from Germany to the United States, where she was hailed as the next Greta Garbo. It explores her rise to fame and eventual decline, with lyrics mentioning how people, quote, came to her on their knees before she eventually took her place at the bar. He brings that up because Horn made her last American film Red Orchids in 1939 before returning to Germany, where she became a nightclub singer before getting back into the swing of thespianism. Now, I'm guessing you want to know the deep connections betwixt a rock legend and a silent star, right? Surely there was a moment or a film that captured the imagination of a young Bruce that led him here. Well, unfortunately, I can't say exactly what drew Springsteen to Camilla Horn specifically, but I can give a little look into the influence of film on the life of and music of Bruce Springsteen. In an article for IndieWire, Kate Erbland explains the connection Springsteen has to film. While there was no direct mentions of silent film, you can tell Bruce has great wide-ranging taste in film, and because of that, it's safe to believe the silents have likely inspired the boss here. Erbland writes, Bruce Springsteen's career has always been intertwined with his love of the movies, from noir thrillers like The Postman Always Rings Twice, to dramas following tough-talking American anti-heroes like Two-Lane Blacktop. The boss's affection for 70s gems and 40s classics hasn't kept him from crafting original songs for contemporary movies either, including his Oscar-winning title track Philadelphia and other lauded compositions for Dead Man Walking and The Wrestler. Now, this whole episode has been a long-winded way of showing that the silent film era still wields influence over far more than folks really give it credit for. While it's been 100 years since sound rendered silent films obsolete, the silent film has never died. In fact, the silents have influenced and inspired so many people in countless artistic disciplines. You really never know where you'll find a silent film connection next. Camilla Horn, she was born a long, long time ago. She came from Germany to the USA and was acclaimed as the next Garbo. They came to her on their knees to bless them, caress them, and tell them what they need. But oh, she did not know. And so she took her place at the bar, just another fallen star. This is the full circle moment in which we start with music and now end with music. Before we leave the recording studio, I want to thank you for spending your valuable music history time with us. It's been a rockin' fun time taking an unexpected look at the confluence of the boss and the actress. It never really occurred to us to look into the connections between silent film and popular music, and it will definitely be something we keep an eye out on for the future. Did you enjoy this non-film German film excursion? What are your favorite relationships between silent films and music? What Camilla Horn film should we check out next? Do you have a favorite modern or modern-ish song that has ties to our favorite era of silent film? Tell us your story. Let us know all of those sordid details in the various social media spots of the Golden Silent Films podcast. On that note, if you have forgotten, we're on Instagram, Bluesky, and Twitter. Let us know all of that and what you thought of this episode in particular. What silent and silent-related movies, past or present, do you want us to look at next? Our world of silent movie knowledge and music knowledge is constantly expanding, and we need your input for future episodes here and beyond. Now again, if you rock out to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or any other podcast that allows it, subscribe, rate, and review. If you're watching on YouTube, like, subscribe, and comment. It does a lot for visibility, and we love hearing your thoughts and ideas. We have set a goal of getting to 100 subscribers on the YouTube channel during the year of 2026, so please subscribe and spread the word so other music-loving / silent film-loving folks will subscribe as well. We really, really appreciate all of your incredible support, and seeing how much you folks out there are listening on all of those platforms only makes us want to make the best show humanly possible. And heading into Season 6's midsection, we have some cool stuff planned. So with all of that being said, thank you to all of you fine listeners for all of your fine listening. And do not forget, the silents are golden, and the talkies, they're just a fad.